So one of the things I wanted to start doing is I want to plug podcasts to check out because I feel like we both listen to quite an array.
Interesting. Interessante.
I think I want to save, as I'm looking at it now, I think I want to save the one I was going to recommend just because I feel like we can get him on the show. We're probably supposed to have had him on the show by now. But so I'm pulling this all real time. The podcast that I'd recommend checking out is called Inside of You. Michael Rosenbaum.
Michael Rosenbaum, yeah. I think we have talked a little bit about Inside of You on this show. One of the best if you're seriously one, if you're a comic book fan, two, if you're into like hearing about actors and actresses and stuff like that. There's an episode with Stephen Amell where it's like right after Arrow happened and he has a legitimate anxiety attack, which leads to like basically a breakdown.
Yeah.
Right. Like he has a breakdown on the show. Mm-hmm. And he has to leave and they don't finish the episode. And then he comes back, I think like a few days later.
Yeah. He comes back and
then they talk about it and he's so open about it. He even tells Rosenbaum like, yeah, release that audio and show everybody, you know? And I think that that's so important to show that like, dude, like, I mean, I was a huge Arrow fan, you know, when it first came out and I was like, this fucking guy with his salmon ladder and his perfect body, you know, but like just seeing the fact that like, it's such a successful show. It set the tone for this DC TV universe that like arguably has fizzled out now, but then it was huge and so much good content and shows came out of that. And to see somebody just have a breakdown where you're thinking like, this person's so successful. They have everything that we would want. They're living the dream. Turns out like sometimes it's not everything. Not everything you see is, you know, like perfection.
Right. And that everybody struggles with, you know, the next like change, change, right? And yeah, that's cool that you said that because that's the episode I think of, and when I talk to people with mental health and just how this affects everybody. It doesn't matter like what you think someone has. I mean, you just look at this dude and you should like this guy should never have any problems in the world. But he even talks about his he had a bad moment. He had been drinking. He had a bad moment on an airplane, and he talks about that.
Yeah,
talks about he got asked. I think he got asked to leave. Right, get off the plane, and he's honest about it. He's like, dude, he's like, I was going through stuff. I was drinking. I probably should, you know. And so I like the level of humility that Steve Amell showed on that, but I also love the level of just openness that Michael Rosenbaum just talks about because. I found his podcast just based on the fact that he was talking to somebody from Smallville.
Well, he was on Smallville.
Yeah. And so I was just like, holy shit, this is Lex Luthor interviewing, you know, for who it was, Lana.
That was a good episode too.
Mm-hmm. And it's just to hear him be like open about like, you know, the medications he's taking and the ones he hasn't, his past, and how he's like trying to like face things, you know, and I don't know. I think so. Yeah. For anyone listening, the Inside of You podcast with Michael Rosenbaum, I think it's definitely worth checking out. And I would love to hear iPod podcast recommendations to check out because there's a lot, and I feel like there's a lot of good ones out there.
There is a lot of the podcasts I listen to. I listen to a lot of like horror podcasts or true crime just because it pulls me out of like my day to day or whatever. And a lot of times I can just listen to it on and
that's conspiracies for me.
Not pay attention. But there is a show and it has nothing to do with mental health, but I would suggest going all the way back to the beginning on this one. It's called The Adventure Zone.
Adventure Zone.
Okay. And it's the like the McElroy brothers. They have a podcast called My Brother, and Me. And it's these three brothers that like, it's a comedy podcast. Like they just talk nonsense for like an hour. Right. But in this show, The Adventure Zone, they get their dad, who used to be a radio host, and they learn how to play Dungeons and Dragons together. Right?
That was awesome.
So they learn how to play Dungeons, and they're breaking all the rules. It's not done properly. It's not done correctly.
People
but it's
like
just three
their
kids and
minds
their
as they're
dad.
watching.
Yeah. Like the purists were so mad. But now they're like that first run, that first arc of the Adventure Zone, it started as like bullshit, and it became like this 8-season story that they told playing Dungeons and Dragons, that when it ended, I was emotional. I was like, holy shit. And then like it's got music production, everything. And then now like it's branched off, and they're releasing graphic novels of each season of that first arc, right?
Wow.
And then it switches, and they go into like, they try different games, they try different stories, all tabletop games. But like basically that show like allowed their dad to retire from the radio, and now he just podcasts with his sons, you know? But there's something weird about like how like awesome the storytelling is. So if you're like looking for something that there's a ton of episodes, you just want to kill time, and then you might get really interested in it, check out that show, because I think it's I actually think it's kind of awesome.
Adventure Zone.
Yeah, it's a little ridiculous, and like you hear them like they make these character choices in the very beginning, and then as the show goes on, they're like, I shouldn't have done this because now I have to maintain it for all these shows. Like one of the brothers chooses for his character to be like a wizard named Taco, who's like a gay elf wizard. And he does this voice, and then he's like, fuck, now I have to do this voice for like 8 seasons. Like he's like, I wasn't expecting it to last this long, but whatever. So
I'm check that out. That's cool.